I want to share with you a story of 3 donkeys that have been given for us to learn from the Bible. The first one is in the book of 1 Samuel chapter 9. It's a story of some donkeys of the king that were lost. And the king appointed his son, or he sent his son Saul to go and look for them. But the story goes about like this young man or a group of him and his friends, they went looking for the donkey. And they moved almost in 3-4 places looking for the donkey. But God had spoken to his prophet Samuel that he's going to find some young men looking for the donkeys. And so the story goes like Saul found a young girl who told him, "Why are you suffering? Yet there is a prophet, there is a seer who can help you locate the donkeys." And so what happened is that when Saul went to Samuel, Samuel told him that though you are looking for the donkeys, you are the king, you are the next king, you are to be appointed, or you are to become the next king. I'm just paraphrasing because it is not the way I'm sharing here. But for the sake of this story, it was not even about the donkey that was lost and found. It was, that story was pointing to the appointment of Saul as the king of that land. That is the first donkey, lost and found. Number 2, the next donkey was, or is shared in the book of Numbers. And this is the story of Balaam, Balak, and the talking donkey. You know, Balak was the king and Balaam was a prophet. And Balaam was a good prophet at some point. But because of greed, corruption, and maybe forgetting who he is and who he has been called to do, he forgot and he started not following, or he started being unfaithful. And so the story is told that the children of Israel were passing through the land, and they were so powerful that the king was afraid of them. So the king called Balaam to come and curse the children of Israel. But God was against him cursing the children, and he gave Balaam a warning: do not curse my children, do not curse. Balaam was given gold to go and curse. So on the way to go and curse God's people, the angel of the Lord stood on the way to block him going to do the wrong thing. Funny enough is that Balaam was so adamant that he could not see the angel. It was the donkey. It was the donkey that saw the angel. And the angel stood there. The donkey started going behind. The donkey started moving behind. And at the end of it all, it slept down. Balaam beat the donkey 3 times until the donkey spoke. And she asked him, "Have I ever refused to do anything? Ever?" And that is not when Balaam opened his eyes, or God opened his eyes and he saw the angel. The point here is this is the only donkey that spoke. The donkey that was willing to be obedient and hear and see and do the will of the Lord. Now, the final donkey that we are sharing is the donkey that carried Jesus. It's so interesting that Jesus was the king, yet he could not use a horse. The way people talk about, oh, the horse is for the king, but Jesus chose a donkey. We don't hear much about this donkey, and it is a donkey that was humble and selfless, because Jesus asked for it. He said to his disciples, "Go and get me that donkey somewhere. Go and untie." The most amazing thing about this donkey is that it was the king maker. It was the king maker. Before we end this segment, let me help you understand the 3 or so powerful lessons we are learning from our 3 donkeys. Our first donkey is what I would call Punda Saul. Punda Saul is the one that got lost, and Saul spent almost 3 or 4 days looking for them. But by the grace of God and by the pronouncement of the prophet of the land then, called Samuel, he was able to locate them. And a very interesting thing to note here is that Saul did not know that though he was looking for the donkey, the animal, and he was working this out to answer the call of his father Kish, he was also being sought after to be the next king of Israel. The character we are finding here is lost and found. And I'm here to let you know that it's okay to be lost. It's okay sometimes to be lost in so many things around your life, around your community, around your family, even around this nation. In the matters of leadership and governance, there are people who have told me, and they keep on saying that, I don't care about this leadership, politics, siyasa. For me, it's not about siyasa. It's about my involvement to develop my nation, my community. And leadership can never be done without us being involved. What you call politics, I call leadership and governance. And therefore, whether you have a position or not, you have to be a part of the process. And so what we see here is lost and found. And I submit to you that all of us are sometimes lost. You don't have to know everything. But the question is, are you willing to be found like Saul was found? And though he was looking for the donkeys, he was the one to be anointed. In the book of 1 Samuel chapter 9 and 10, you find that story. And so once you understand this lesson, you'll know that we are not talking about the donkey. This is not about the donkey animal. It's about me and you. The next donkey we find here is what we call, or the one we call, Punda Balaam. This is a very interesting one. This Punda was used of God to speak to a man who supposedly was supposed to guide the donkey. Look at that. This is what we call courageous and bold Punda. A Funda that has raw audacity, guts of the highest order. And this is what we are learning from this donkey. That be willing to do your part. Be willing to be faithful only until when you know that you cannot do the wrong thing. Balaam was told by God not to go and curse the children of Israel, and he had. But because of the enticement of the gold that he was being given by the king, Balak, he was negotiating his mind, his will to obey with the amount of gold he was getting. But let me tell you one thing. It doesn't matter what God uses, but his will shall prevail. And this is the lesson, that if you refuse to do the will of God, God is going to use some unconventional ways, objects, things around your life to speak to you. This Punda Balaam spoke to Balaam. And not even sound the way the donkeys do. Ha, he, ha, he, ha. Not that one. He spoke the language he could hear with his own physical ears. If he was speaking in Greek, that Punda spoke in Greek. If he was speaking in English, that is exactly what he did. And he gave him a message, and he asked him, for the many years you have worked with me as your Funda, have I ever refused to do anything that you have given me to do? Have you ever seen anywhere? And why are you beating me 3 times? Why have you beaten me 3 times? That is not the time when God opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw an angel with a sword. And that was a clear message that God had opened the eyes of the donkey before the eyes of the once a prophet of the land. But the message I want to share with us here is this, that we need to be very courageous and very strong and bold with the light we carry within us, the light of God, to know when to say no to the wrong burdens around our lives, and when to stand strong and defend the cause of God. Remember, the work of the donkey is to carry burdens, or better, maybe if I can say it in a better way for you to for it to come out better, ni kubeba mizigo. But lakini kazi ya punda si kubebeshwa mizigo. That is the point I want to make here. Kuna kubeba mizigo, because every person must carry a burden, whether you are doesn't matter. I hear people talking about freedom has come, freedom is coming, freedom is here, freedom is there. But there is nobody who can be free. Even Jesus said that, come to me, carry my yoke. So there's nothing like freedom is here. You have to be carrying a burden, carry a burden. And I want to echo the words of our president, that he needs to increase the base of people who are paying taxes, for as many of us who have PIN number or are able to pay small taxes in small sizes, but millions of people who are paying the same tax, meaning that we have to carry the burden. Hakuna kukaa bila kubeba mzigo. And that is how you become a Punda faithful or a Funda faithful. However, we cannot be bebeshwad mizigo. That's the point I want to make. And that is what we are learning from Punda Balaam. The final Punda that we are learning from is Punda Christ. This is a Funda that was spared and kept in a place, because Jesus says that go and untie. He was somewhere prepared. He was somewhere waiting. And when he was approached by the disciples of Christ, maybe through the owner, he never refused. He came and carried Jesus Christ. He even maybe didn't know the kind of a burden he was carrying. Some of us are carrying Christ. Some of us are carrying burden that signify a greater calling that can be said like the way this Punda did. Are you faithful enough to carry such a burden that is going to bring liberation? And true liberation, not the ones I hear people talk about, they want to fight on the street and all that kind of stuff, of things, but carrying the burden that has so much weight to the potential of liberating a whole nation. Maybe you are there, you have an idea, you have a business, you have an NGO, you have a non-profit, you have a business. You are there, and maybe you are wondering, who am I doing this for? I want to remind you that continue being faithful, continue being faithful, continue being faithful, and you shall see how great your burden is. So when you hear us talking about Punda promises, we mean that give me the burden and I'll carry it. Give me an assignment, I'll do it, and I'll faithfully do it. So our Punda promise is a signature to signify that we are willing to carry the burden. When you hear us talk about Punda here, Punda there, we want to celebrate the great lessons that we are learning from this animal. And so that is why you are invited to take these lessons seriously from Punda number 1, number 2, number 3. We are called to serve. We are called to be faithful. And our slogan from the Punda is what we are saying, Funda faithful. Funda faithful. We can say maybe even maybe the donkey is not responsible. It is faithful. It does the work faithfully. Thank you for watching, and keep on learning. We are just beginning. We have just started. And by the end of the day, this is greater calling to all of us in this nation and even in Africa, that we are supposed to carry this burden. So from Punda Saul, from Punda Balaam, from Punda Christ, God bless you. See you soon. Until next time, may God help you to become a faithful Funda. See you soon.